64-bit legends. Welcome.
Legend of the game like GoldenEye, I'm more than right.
Yeah.
The perfect dark is dreams that seem to come to light. 64-bit, the shit, it's as real as it
Yeah.
gets. We can
Yeah.
talk sports, games, and music, take your pick. Point with the news, pull up and crack a brew. Smoke one with the crew,
Smoke.
tune in and take a view.
Watch.
We here to raise the bar from the lowest mark. Sit your ass down and listen, it's time for the show to start.
Show to start.
Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the 64-Bit Legends. I am Bobby Caboose. As always, looking for that hot tag is Melvin Troy.
I'm looking for a hot tag, and I just shoved a big piece of meat in my mouth. It's probably one of the smartest ways to start a podcast.
Start off the episode with meat in your mouth.
Yep.
Well, speaking of meat in your mouth,
Yeah.
or things in your mouth, I experienced something that you experienced on one of our episodes
Okay.
in the past.
Oh, really?
I took an edible last night,
Uh-huh.
and it didn't kick in until about 8 o'clock this morning.
Oh, you had a delayed one.
Yeah, I had the delayed effect, and I was kind of high at bowling this morning when I bowled against the children.
Are you still high, or is it worn up
it's
now?
worn off now. I'm just now tired. I need a nap. I just recorded episode 9 of the Legends Layover
Oh, nice.
with T, and now I'm here, and we're gonna fight the struggle bus and get through this.
You're
we're-
struggling?
Not well, as far as just being tired.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like the Magic School Bus. So okay, so we had our Fab Five today, right?
Yeah.
I'll run this past you. Our Fab Five was cartoons.
Right.
So we pick. If you listen to the show, it's like a draft style. You pick one. If you pick Family Guy, I can't pick Family Guy, right?
Yeah.
So fucking T picks. He picked Magic School Bus on his list, and I go, "That's the fucking worst pick in the history of this show."
Wait, and this is just for cartoons?
Yes.
This is what it's supposed to be?
Yes, like his first pick was Hey Arnold. Mine was Family Guy.
Okay.
I had Family Guy, South Park, Bob's Burgers, Rugrats, pre-Dill. I made sure that people knew it was pre-Dill because Dill
Yeah.
fucking sucks.
Yeah, Dill is the worst.
and
He's
I had
not
Rocco's
great.
Modern Life.
Okay.
And T had Hey Arnold, Recess, I believe. But I forget the other ones. But he had mentioned Arthur, and I was like, Arthur fucking sucks. And then he actually picked the Magic School Bus, and I was like, dude, I watched that in like library class in elementary school, and that fucking sucks. Like that, I told
Yeah.
him that was the worst pick in the history of the Fab Five segment. I was like, dude, I don't want to be educated on my fucking cartoons after school. Like, I get home, I don't want to fucking learn anymore.
A lot of the times I would watch those. I think I've mentioned this before, but I would watch those kinds of cartoons or like the Teletubbies and Sesame Street because it was on Channel 3.
Yeah.
And I had to put Channel 3 on
To play video games.
Yeah. And so like at the end of the day, they are hypnotizing.
Yeah.
They're not good, but they are good at hypnotizing young children. And this is all the way up until probably like high school. This would happen where I'm just like, you get up on like a Saturday morning and I'm kind of waking up and I'm just flipping. I got to push the button on the TV in my
input.
room. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, to go down from like 47 to 3.
Oh,
'cause
yeah.
I lost the
Yeah.
remote and I can't type it in. So then I got to just like push it. And then I get there and I'm like, oh, what game do I want to play? And it's like, yeah, Magic School Bus or Arthur or whatever. And then all of a sudden, as I'm sitting there picking the game, I'm just kind of looking at it. And then I realize 20 minutes has gone by. And those shows, there's no commercials. So they don't break
Yeah.
because PBS doesn't have commercials.
Right.
So there's no commercials to break it up to remind you like, oh, hey, get
Yeah.
back to what you're doing.
So I also asked him at the end of the segment, we went over it a little bit because usually the Fab Five ends our show. You
Yeah.
know, we don't really have much after that. And I think people like this segment, so we push it to the back. So you have to listen to us the whole
Yeah.
time, right? So, but anyway, I asked T, was he? And I'll ask you: did you favor one, like when you were a kid? If you watch cartoons or whatever, did you favor like one channel over the other? Like, because I never had Disney, except for
yeah.
when it was free.
Yeah.
And I never got into like the ABC cartoons like Recess. I never got into
No.
Arthur, the PBS shit. Like I was like almost strictly a Nickelodeon.
Yeah, when it
cartoon
came
guy.
to cartoons, it was a cable channel only. I was not the type of like, oh, let me put on AB. The only way I would watch like the ABC cartoons or the Fox cartoons in the morning on like a Saturday
Yeah.
is when I would go to my dad's house because he didn't have cable.
Right.
So that was the only option that you had. And then all of a sudden it would lead in like, I think it was like Fox or one of those would lead in from like cartoons of like the X-Men or something. And then they'd wean themselves off of cartoons, and then all of a sudden like Hercules is on or
Yeah,
some shit.
Xena the Princess Warrior.
Yeah, then eventually Star Trek and all this other bullshit. And I would watch it because there was just nothing.
Right.
He only had a couple channels, but like on cable, it was originally like Nickelodeon, and then when we got Cartoon Network, I started to watch Cartoon Network more because I preferred cartoons than the live action, and Nickelodeon was always a mix. Like I didn't mind some live action things, like. I didn't like the game shows.
Yeah.
And that was always what made me change
I
channel.
like this game shows. Like I used to watch like the Gas Channel.
I hated
games
it.
and
I
sports.
thought it was a waste.
Okay. I mean,
When
you're telling me you're not a fan of Omar Gooding?
No, I like his brother Cuba.
Dude, Omar is way more talented. He hosted Nick Arcade and Wild and Crazy Kids.
He didn't do Nick Arcade. He
He
did.
did. He did
It's
Nick
not-
Arcade.
That's
It's Omar Gooding.
I thought that was a different guy.
No, he did Nick Arcade and Wild and Crazy Kids.
I know Wild and Crazy Kids,
Yeah, he did. He did.
but Wild. I see those until Cartoon Network, because there was a time when we didn't get Cartoon Network,
yeah,
but this was a time when I was fortunate enough to have Disney Channel, so it was Nickelodeon or Disney Channel. And Disney Channel I actually leaned more towards because their the cartoon quality back then, I can't speak on now, but back in the early 90s was pretty good because they had like
DuckTales.
you get they didn't have commercials back then. It was like HBO.
Yeah.
So it was DuckTales. They eventually made like cartoons of like the movies like Aladdin
Yeah.
or Little Mermaid and things.
I think they had what was the Chipmunks. Chip and Dale.
Chip and Dale, Rescue Rangers, Tailspin, like, the Gummy Bears, Winnie the Pooh.
I forgot about the Gummy Bears.
Like there was some quality cartoons, and Nickelodeon. I mean, outside of like you had your Nicktoons, which were like
Rugrats, Doug.
but back then they didn't have that many episodes because it was
Right.
new. So I would go Disney Channel, and then eventually Cartoon Network came around, and mostly though early on, Cartoon Network just played like old Warner Brothers or Hanna-Barbera cartoons and shit like that, like Flintstones and
Yeah.
Jetsons and Bugs Bunny and shit.
Yeah, and like Tom and Jerry, I think.
Yeah,
was
a lot
Cartoon
of Tom
Network.
and Jerry. Yeah,
Like that's the only like when Cartoon Network first came around. That's like the only cartoon I remember being on there all the time is Tom and Jerry.
yeah. Then they did a contest called you may remember, it was just this block of like short cartoons, like one episode
Yeah,
a
that's
piece.
where a Family Guy came, right?
Well, that's a bunch of them, yeah. So it was called What a Cartoon, and they would basically like based on the viewership, they would blast these. That's where Powerpuff Girls came from, Johnny Bravo, a really like rudimentary version of Family Guy, like a very clean version of that, where Peter's like an old guy instead
Yeah.
of being a fat idiot. He was still an idiot, but and then there was a few other ones that spawned Cow and Chicken and all those ones. And so then eventually, yeah, then they had, and once those kind of took off, I started watching Cartoon Network, definitely less Nickelodeon, but then for cartoons, MTV.
Yeah,
Because at that point I was getting older.
and Daria and
Yeah, Daria, Beavis and Butthead was still kind of around, or at least reruns. Then they had like the ones that would like show up for like a year or two. There was one called
3 South.
3 South. There
I think that was only like 5 episodes.
there was one called Downtown. You can still find it on YouTube. It only had like one season, but it was kind of cool. As a nerdy kid moved to the city.
Celebrity Deathmatch,
Oh
somewhat.
yeah, Celebrity Deathmatch was like that was what I loved that. It was
Yeah, that was awesome.
like as far as MTV animation, the ones that I would like look forward to watching. Unfortunately, I started watching it regularly when Beavis and Butthead had ended.
Right.
but was Daria and Celebrity Deathmatch.
Yeah.
And then there would be like other shit. They
I
would throw in
always
there.
liked Celebrity Deathmatch. I never got into Daria, and I actually did like that 3 South show.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think there was only 5 or 6 episodes, and then like it got canceled or whatever the fuck happened.
Yeah, there was a lot of experimental ones they did. There was one called, I forget, it was like they were like spies, but they were based off of, you gotta understand, this is a young Ben Affleck and Matt Damon was like the idea of
Yeah.
it. So they were kind of like not Ben Affleck, Matt Damon from what's the one where he's a genius? Every one of them, but you know the one like with Robin Williams.
Yeah,
Good Will Hunting.
Yes,
Not that one, but like
I put half a equation on a chalkboard.
yeah.
I figured it out.
But
My best friend's Matt Damon.
but yeah, those were the cartoons that I would watch, and then eventually, of course, South Park.
Yeah.
And you know the Comedy Central ones.
Dude, have you watched the new South Park season?
I have not watched it
It's
since
terrible.
the pandemic.
It's terrible, man. Like it's 4 episodes in, I believe, and it's
Really?
none of the episodes are good.
Like I've seen clips where they're talking about like ChatGPT. And
Yeah,
stuff like that, but-
like I mean, I don't know, man. It doesn't. It's not good. I've watched the 4 episodes, and I
like,
just can't get behind it.
Is it not as edgy or something? Or
It's like that chat app. Like that
Yeah.
was basically the whole episode, and
Okay.
it didn't seem like a lot was going on except for that app.
okay,
Like it like I don't know. The story just isn't there. Like it's just I think they're getting lazy.
well, I mean they've been doing it for like
This
30
is
years.
26 season.
Yeah, 26 years. So, like, it's eventually gonna like they're gonna do like The Simpsons, where they'll keep because the people have been talking about The Simpsons like that.
Right.
That it's sucked for years, but they
Yeah.
keep making it.
I mean, as long as you keep making money.
Like the last one I watched was when they did the pandemic special, and we're like.
I still
It
haven't
was-
watched that one.
That one was pretty good. It was very timely, but then I had to wait because I didn't. It was on HBO. They uploaded that. So they'll upload certain episodes. If you go to Hulu, I guess you can
Yeah.
watch them when they're fresh. But I don't pay for that. And so since I had to wait, and then I waited, and then I was not in the mood. Like I got to
Right.
be in the mood to do it, and then I'll power through like a
Yeah,
couple seasons.
I mean, it was just like I said, I watched the last one with the app,
Yeah.
the chat app, and like that's basically the only thing they were talking about the entire episode. And usually there's a couple things going on,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't seem the same.
I'd be curious if they did something stupid though, where they just chat GPT to the entire script.
That could have been
Like I
it.
bet sometimes they'll do gimmicks like that where they're like, yeah, this episode we're just gonna fucking do something stupid. Like back in the day, this is an early one. This is from like season 2 or something like that, where it was like a cliffhanger. It was a multi-part episode.
Okay.
It was one of the first ones, and it was to figure out who Cartman's father was.
Yeah,
and so I didn't watch it live at the time.
John wasn't allowed to watch that one.
That particular one.
He always told us, and we like he told us what we told that he had to like go home and rub his dad's feet. And
Oh,
shit.
yeah,
he always
yeah.
tell us a little too much information, you
Yeah.
know. And he was like, "Yeah, my mom doesn't want me to watch South Park if they mention Cartman's dad." So like Moose would be like, "So if they just say Cartman's dad, you can't watch it."
Yeah. Well, so the thing is they were going to do the reveal on it, and then the next week they were, because this is before DVRs and all this.
Yeah.
So the next week was supposed to be like, all right, we're going to reveal it.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did is they made a Terrence and Phillip only episode. Had nothing to do with South Park. Didn't even have any of the characters in it. And people flipped the fuck out. And then the next week they did the one where they finally reveal it. And that's where the reveal is that there is no father. She's a hermaphrodite.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's
I never knew that.
yeah. There is no father. She impregnated
Fucked-
herself.
Yeah, fucked herself.
Yeah, that was the joke of it. So, but they'll do.
Do they
shit
ever
Like that.
do they ever mention that again? Like,
No.
Have you seen an episode where they ever mention her being a hermaphrodite again?
No, they just mention she's a whore.
No.
Yeah, that's always like the joke, is that you don't know who it was, and then like Dr. Mephisto came out and was like, actually, none of you are the father, because it left off. It was like there's like every character in
Yeah.
South Park, the entire Denver Broncos team, and it's like, who out of all these people could it be? And then they're like, it's none of you. She's a hermaphrodite.
You fucking idiots. But yeah, the newest season is not good.
No.
So
Well,
check out an episode and let me know what you think.
I will say one show that I had watched to completion recently. So it was the week. When did I do that? It was before St. Patrick's Day. I had just I go on like TikTok and that, and they'll do a lot of these where they just put clips, scenes of shows on, and I end up watching that. And they were doing Breaking Bad is a popular one that they do that with, and then Better Call Saul, obviously,
Right,
as
the
the
spin-off.
spinoff. It's like a prequel to the
Yeah.
whole thing. And I had watched Better Call Saul. I'd watched like probably, I don't know, 3-4 seasons of it. And then I stopped because I ran out of seasons and I didn't want to wait. And then,
Right.
then I know it was delayed because of the pandemic and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to finish it because it had just ended last summer. Mm-hmm. So what I started doing was I would put Netflix on my phone. And since I already watched like the first bunch of seasons, I just put it on the background.
Yeah.
And just to remind me. And then I finally finished it. But what I had to do is, it was season 5. There's 6 seasons. Season 5 was on Netflix. I get through that, and I thought there was only 5 seasons because I figured the show's over.
Yeah.
So Netflix has all the episodes, and so I get to the end. I get to the last episode of season 5, and I'm like, it's like 30 minutes left, and I'm like, how are they going to end? Like,
Right.
they're not tying anything together. Are they just going to be like, and then Walter White showed up? Like,
Right.
I don't know, like how it. And so I finished it. I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And so I Google it. There's like a whole other season. There's like 6.
That's just not on Netflix yet?
Yeah, they didn't put it on Netflix, and it's even longer. Like it's actually kind of like 2 seasons in one. It's like 13 episodes or something like that. And so but it's not anywhere I could find. I can't get it anywhere. I can't get it on like Hulu or any of that shit. So I have to go on Apple TV, and I just had to buy it for like $25 because I'm like, I'm not waiting a year
Right.
to finish this because I'll have to do this all over again.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm paying this now, and I'm gonna fucking watch this.
Guess what they just put on FX? Or
What?
it's starting this week. Entourage.
Like reruns of it?
Yeah,
That's a smart move.
they're starting like they're advertising like watch the whole series on FX starting whatever day
That's a smart
this week.
move. But so I finally finish it, and honestly, the end. Now once I get to the real ending, it makes sense a little bit. But I was a little disappointed, and I felt like I hadn't done that in a while, where I watched a full series all the way through. I think last year around the same time I finished Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
and that one I felt like, okay. This one, I don't know. I was a little disappointed in it.
Dude, I watched the first 3 seasons of that You show on Netflix.
Oh, the serial killer
Yeah.
guy? Yeah.
Thought it should have ended after the 3rd season. Like the 3rd season ended perfect. Like you didn't need any more.
Yeah.
So I watched the first episode of the 4th season. Fucking terrible. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'm done with this. I haven't watched another episode, and I don't think I've ever done that with a show where I'm like, all right, well,
I did that with Mad Men. It was good. I found it interesting, and I watched. I think there's only 7 seasons. I think I got around season 5 or 6, and it had started to lose me, and I was getting bored with it.
yeah.
And then I was like, I'm good. I don't need to
Right.
finish this.
Like
I don't want to finish this.
He ends up like burning down his old house because like he's getting rid of all the evidence, and he moves to Europe, and all of a sudden season 4 he's a professor. Like he got a job as a professor at a college, and he's like stalking this chick from America that he met before.
Oh, so now he's gotten to another victim.
Yeah.
Oh, he's like, this is they're making the same mistake with this like they did with Dexter, where they just don't know when to end
Right.
it.
Like, I mean,
They-
the 3rd season ended with him dropping off his kid at like a friend's house. Like he's a baby. He put him in a stroller and just put him on the porch and rang the doorbell. Pretty much just left him.
Yeah.
And he killed his baby mama.
Okay.
He framed her to look like she killed him, and then committed suicide. So
Was she the one who also wanted to kill people?
yes,
Okay.
I believe
They did the same thing in Dexter.
Yeah.
This is the same shit.
So, and then he burns the house down to like, cover his tracks, right?
Yeah.
That's a perfect ending.
And so they're basically so they're doing the thing where he goes to another environment, finds a new victim, and they're like kind of like soft rebooting the show.
Yeah.
Like they did that with that show Nip Tuck. So the first 3 seasons of that show, really good for its time. If you watch it now, it's obviously a little dated. It's like 20 years old.
Right.
But
I remember I only seen like 1 or 2 episodes, and one episode was when the dude like he was like fucking this ugly chick, and he made her put a paper bag over her head.
that was like season 4. Yeah, that one was. I liked Christian Troy. He was really cool. He was my inspiration as a young adult. I was like, I want to be him.
Is that where you got your last name?
I wanted to be a mix of him and Larry David for some reason. That was my. But that doesn't really work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't. Really, like, you can't be Larry David and just be fucking people all the time. It doesn't. So. But yeah, there was season 3 was like they did a really good job, setting it up. Season 1 was very interesting show. Season 2 had a great cliffhanger of like this serial killer / serial rapist that was like carving up all of the people that they were fixing. Or no, but they started fixing the victims. So then he kept like instigating it, and then one of the doctors got attacked. And then season 3, the whole the main arc of the series. I mean, there's other stories, but the main arc of the series was who is the carver? Who is this person? It could be anybody. You don't know. And it was like really like, and that season's like really good. And it's really edgy. It like pushes the edge on everything. And then they end it, and then it's like, okay, now what? Now what do you do? So then season 4 was
you just get the paper bags out.
Well, it was like a hodgepodge of these storylines where there's the one of the main storylines of like there's Christian and Sean, and Christian's the more like rambunctious of the doctors. He's like the sex addict one, and then Sean is the family man, or he's supposed to be the family man. But of course, by this point, they're trying to like flip it around. They got to make it interesting,
Right.
So, obviously, Sean reconnects with his wife. They have a child, and you're a plastic surgeon. What's your worst nightmare? You have a child with a deformity, and the child's deformity is he has like the thing where the fingers aren't separated.
He's got webby fingers.
He's got webby fingers, like the penguin almost.
Yeah.
And so it becomes this whole thing, and the child's born, and he's then they got to uncover the fact that Sean growing up had a cleft palate. Like, why'd you introduce that? Who gives a shit? And it was like this whole thing, and then like they have to get a nanny, and like Peter Dinklage. This is early Dinklage, but Peter Dinklage is the nanny, and he's a midge, and so like his thing is like, you should leave it because it's beautiful. Imperfections are beautiful.
Because he's a midge.
But at the same time, he falls in love with Sean's wife, and he just thinks about doing the surgery to make himself taller. And it's like this whole thing back. That's like the main follow through, and they don't know where to go with it. So basically, they one of the other sub stories is they get bought out like with an investor. Gotcha. And they go and like, hey, basically you work for us, but we're gonna give you a bunch of money so you can expand.
Yeah.
And come to find out, the wife. It's like a couple that do this, and the wife is really the one who runs the business, and she's got like some shady dealings, and they have to like get rid of this criminal or something. So anyway, my point is the way it ends is there's like a hurricane because it's in Florida, and everything goes, and then they quit the practice and they're done, and then it's like, well, where do you go from that? Well, just move them out to L.A. now and have it start a practice. And basically just bring all the characters back out to L.A., but now it's in L.A. now.
So everyone moves to L.A.?
Yeah. And so basically in season 5, it like soft reboots, and now it's like with actors, and like a young Bradley Cooper is like an actor who is like Sean is working with, and it's just like, it just gets out of control. And it doesn't work. They did it with Dexter. Same thing with Dexter. Serial killer, but he kills only bad people.
Yeah.
And then he meets his match in like season 4 with this guy, the Trinity Killer. It's like this John Lithgow character. And it was really good. And he ends up like, spoiler alert, he ends up killing Dexter's wife, who doesn't know about any of this. She's an innocent. And it's like, where do you go? And it's like, I don't know. Well, season 5.
Dexter
Now-
meets a chick.
No, season 5. Now the main serial killer is a hitman. And it's like, well, how do you go from like the coolest serial killer ever, the creepiest
Yeah.
thing, to like this guy's technically a serial killer because he's a hitman? I was like, I don't know where we're going.
Well, it's like Entourage. We mentioned.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
It went on a couple seasons too much too. It's
Yeah.
like Vinny Chase just figures it out.
Yeah, he always figures it out. Like there's
Nah,
a
don't worry about it. We'll make another movie or something.
there's a lull where there's the one season. I think it's like there's 8 seasons. I think season 7.
See, I thought there was 10.
No, there's only 8.
Okay.
But I think season 7, you finished it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So season 7 has, I want to say, where he picks up the cocaine habit and he's dating the porn star
Yeah.
and then he gets in a fight with Eminem.
Yeah.
So they probably could have cut season 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Because season 7 makes sense. He's like, okay, now he's an actor. He's got a
Right.
drug problem. His career's on the rocks, like whatever. And then, of course, season 8 is the redemption of everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of moves on.
And then like fucking everyone's just successful. They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's fucking go.
Yeah, like fucking Ari all of a sudden just owns a studio or some
Yeah.
shit like that. Like he's just a billionaire.
And then like Turtle has like all these tequila deals and
Yeah.
shit. I'm like, who the fuck are you? Just because you know somebody.
yeah,
Like, oh, I hang out with Vinny Chase.
it was too much. It was too.
Fucking Aquaman.
It was almost like, hey, there's these relatable people and they're making it. To like now, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not in reality anymore.
No.
But yeah, that's a problem with these shows. They're just not. They go on. They try to milk it. 5, maybe 6 seasons. That's all you need.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Tell a nice story.
Yeah.
And just get out.
Yep. Just get out and move on to another one.
Because you can always do spin-offs.
Yeah, like I think the reason why people look at Breaking Bad as such a great show, it's not. I don't think it's one of the best, but it's up there as far as writing and as far as like creating intrigue and all
Yeah.
that. The reason it works is because it was only 5 seasons long. It told its story, it told it very well, and it got out. And then
Yeah.
they're like, hey, there's some good characters here, so to kind of you got like Better Call Saul, which is basically mostly the prequel, but then like by the last season, it's like it gets you caught up to where Breaking Bad starts,
Yeah.
and then now it's like after the events of Breaking Bad,
Right.
of like here's and then they did a movie for Netflix with his sidekick Jesse Pinkman lives at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
series, so it's how does he escape? It's like 2 hours of him just trying to be able to get to where
Yeah,
he
because
goes.
like even like
That works.
Even like Entourage, they could have made a spin-off with like Turtle
Mm-hmm.
and have him like not be successful. You
Yeah.
know, like just
Yeah.
be like, all right, Vinny Chase is going to do his own thing. He's got married or whatever, and now Turtle's got to go back to New York and
Yeah.
be Turtle.
Like I think that's better. Like even Game of Thrones, one of my criticisms of it, like a lot of people hated the ending. I didn't mind the ending, but I thought there was a bunch of episodes leading up to it that they could have just like cut.
Yeah.
It's like you're just wasting time.
See,
now.
I'm watching the final season of Snowfall right now. It's going on.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're rushing through this final season. Like I think they should have had another season and then the final, because like one of the main characters, he moves to Africa with this chick, right?
Yeah.
And he ends up moving back, and this is all in like the first episode. Like he moved there, they show him in Africa a little bit, and then towards the end of the episode he moves back, and they're like, man, Leon, you missed a bunch of shit. And they have like this fucking montage of what happened when he was gone, and it could have been a whole season.
Oh, really?
Like it was like a quick, like just a bunch of people getting shot, like a bunch of people, like this happened, like the family is feuding now and all this shit. And I'm like, you could have had a whole season with this.
yeah.
And you know, but the whole like I really like the show Snowfall, but it's like from the first episode, like it's very like sped up. Like they don't take their time telling the story.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
shit happens quick. Like
Gotcha.
the way he finds to cook crack is like one episode.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, okay, well, cool. You just happen to go to Oakland and to find this shit. You know.
Yeah, there's just I don't get into shows anymore. Like that's probably the last series I'm gonna watch for a long time. I don't watch too many movies. I don't watch too many shows. A lot of them are garbage.
Yeah.
Like I don't they're just
Well, it's like the remakes, like
Yeah.
they're remaking White Men Can't Jump, and it looks
I
fucking
saw
terrible,
that,
and it's
yeah.
PG-13, and you know, like why not? instead of making the same movie, like even with the shows, make a spin-off. Like
Yeah.
make it out of one character and be like, okay, well, this person went
Well,
here.
So I was talking with somebody the other day about this, and I think there's a better way to do these reboots, and they can make a lot more money. And we were talking about some of the most recent Batman movie and
Yeah.
the Joker movie. And what they did essentially is they took a style from a director of two of their more successful films, and they kind of recreated it, but then they used Batman characters.
Right.
And so, like, the Joker, we probably talked about this before, but the movie Joker is basically you take the Martin Scorsese films of Taxi Driver and King of Comedy,
Yeah.
mush it together, and then, inject the character of the Joker in there.
Yeah.
And then now you got a movie, and it works. And you know it's not high art.
Right.
It's not high art by any means, but it's entertaining. You're getting what you want, and in a way, you're kind of doing a little bit of a reboot or
Right.
like a retelling of a similar type of story.
It's like in the same universe.
Yeah, same thing with the most recent Batman movie. It's David Fincher's films Seven and Zodiac, and they kind of took the elements of that people liked, and they injected it with the Batman character, and then boom, here you
Yeah.
go. Now you got and it's a good movie. It's not amazing. I'm not going to say it's like the best movie ever made, but it does its job. It's
Right.
entertaining. I'd rewatch it.
I think it's better than any other DC or Marvel movie.
Right now, yeah, I think those they're doing a really good job with that because they're taking like a mature approach with it.
Yeah.
Where the Marvel movies are just like it's like live action cartoons. I
Right.
can't get around. They're children's movies.
Right.
And hey, you know what? Kids like movies.
That's why I stick
But-
with Deadpool,
Deadpool's good. I like it.
because Deadpool has adult, at least, humor.
But unfortunately, they haven't. They were supposed to make a third one, and then it stopped. And now apparently, they teased that Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are working together to make a third Deadpool, and Hugh Jackman's going to come back as Wolverine. I think that'll be pretty good, especially if they
Same.
make it rated R,
Yeah.
make it an adult movie. They both ended on R-rated movies.
Right.
Logan, have you ever seen Logan?
No.
Logan is really good. Logan is one of those movies you really don't even need to know. You don't have to watch the.
The pre movies.
No, it helps a little bit, but you have an idea. It's Wolverine and Professor X
Yeah.
in a version of the future. That's all you got.
Right.
That's like that sets you up, but it's done so well. Now, granted, it has a more emotional impact if you go and watch all of them
Right.
leading up to it, because it's kind of like the end.
Right.
It's like how people would watch Endgame, the
Yeah.
Avengers Endgame. Like I didn't watch all the other Avengers. I watched the 2-part movies.
Yeah, the Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah. And I was like, all right, that's
Which I
pretty
thought
good.
Infinity War was terrible.
It was rough. It was a little rough. Endgame tied it together and made it made it make sense. But that's a big
I mean, I saw Infinity War with you and Kowalski, and I
Yeah.
was like, dude, this is fucking terrible.
yeah. And well, I've never seen it really too many Marvel movies to begin
neither.
with. So
But like, to me, it's like the same shit, different movie. Like,
Yeah.
It's like
yeah.
it's the same fucking plot.
Yeah, it was just kind of it was just they threw everything they had all at once. And I don't think they could recreate. I think it was a very successful movie because it was the first time they ever did that.
Yeah.
But I don't think they could be like, all right, we're going to lead up for the next 10 years and we're going to do it again. And it's like, I don't know if that's going to work.
Right. I think the comic book phase is going to be phasing out soon.
I think the comic book phase, as it like the Marvel version of it, will fade out. I think it will lead to more of an adult, because the DC ones, the core ones, like Joker,
Yeah.
Joker made $1 billion.
Right.
Like that shit's
Yeah.
not gonna,
I think it's
Batman's
gonna.
another
I
one.
think it's
like,
gonna turn more into like a psychological.
Yeah.
Movie.
They're gonna make them more mature. Someone brought this up last night. You remember Spawn? Mm-hmm. I don't know why the fuck Todd McFarlane has not.
In relation to Seth.
No, I don't know why he hasn't made a Spawn movie since '97.
Yeah.
Like, what are you wait? Like, it's the fucking easiest thing in the world. People will go and see it. Like, you
Right.
can't fail. Like, it's a fucking superhero movie. You put the right. It's an adult movie.
Yeah.
Now's the time to do adult. Like, I understand maybe in the early 2000s it wouldn't have been the time, right?
Right.
Because they weren't PG-13 was it. You could,
Right.
But now they want to see dark superheroes.
We're bringing back the Attitude Era.
Yeah. and they want to see dark superheroes. Spawn's the perfect one. And on top of it, like, it's very diverse. Spawn's black.
Yeah.
He's a black man. Like, the whole thing is, it's like, it's honestly a cooler version of Black Panther. Let's be honest. Like, it's a very
I just like your hand movements right now.
diverse move because it's frustrating. I'm like, you're sitting on billions of dollars. You could make a whole series of this. People would love it, and he's not doing it. I'm like, why? People want it. People love Spawn.
Spawn loves the people.
Yes. Have you ever seen the HBO? I mean, they made a cartoon and it was only on HBO because it was so violent and it swore and it was an adult show.
So it was good.
It was good. This was in the late 90s.
I don't think I've ever seen you this passionate.
Because it's frustrating. It's like, dude, for almost 30 years, you haven't fucking used. You own Spawn. He owns it, by the way. Marvel doesn't own it. DC, he left Marvel because he used to do. He came up with the characters of like Venom and stuff for Spider-Man. And he was like, no, I want ownership of this. Like, I came up with these. I don't get to own these. So he made Spawn, and it fucking took off. He was like, the golden child of like, hey, you want to make your own comic books. This is the way to do it. And he has this great intellectual property, and they've done nothing with it. No, he just makes toys. And it's like, bro, you could make games. Like, people loved the last few video games they made for like the last time they made a Spawn game was in the fucking Xbox or Xbox 360. But they put them in, what did they put them in, like a fighting game? They put them in Mortal Kombat recently.
Yeah.
It was like, people loved it. People were flipping out. They're like, yeah, let's do that. I want to have Spawn versus Rambo.
Dude, I don't think I've ever seen you this passionate.
Oh my God, they're making a fucking RoboCop video game. Looks dope as hell. And Spawn's just sitting there like a fucking dumb retard. And it's like, why are you...
You're doing your
Billions.
best. You're doing your best Artie Lang right now.
Billions of... Artie Lang? Artie Lang's usually like high on heroin and passing out.
I saw the Dark Side of Comedy on him. You're reminding me of him right now on maybe Howard Stern or something.
I don't know. You usually pass out on Howard Stern.
Yeah, when he was sober for a little bit.
There was one. Did you ever see they took him off YouTube, unfortunately, but there's a bunch of like great Artie Lang. Like, there was a period that he left Howard Stern's show in 2009, I want to say, maybe 2010, and but the couple years leading up to it, when they went to Sirius, so probably like somewhere around like 2007, 2010, there was like, they were pretty much like, now they're free to do anything they want.
Right.
They got like $1 billion to work with. It wasn't $1 billion. It was like 500 million or something like that. And they had all and it was edgy. It's not Howard Stern now where he just does celebrity interviews. Right. It was always, that's where like the Sybian came from. Remember that everyone, that was like, I remember you go to a porn site and it was like the most popular videos were Howard Stern on a porn site because he had some girl on a Sybian. And so, but because he was obviously on heroin.
Right.
You watched that whole thing? I haven't seen it, but I know the Artie Lang story pretty well.
Yeah, he did not have, well, I guess I'm not going to say he didn't have a good life, but like,
I read his book.
When his dad died, he like spiraled out of control.
Yeah, his dad like fell off a ladder.
Yeah, his dad fell off a ladder, got paralyzed.
Yeah.
And I think he died like 4 years after he got paralyzed. And Artie Lang had like, I forget which comic came over to his apartment.
I know
they were living together. Maybe
he was friends with Norm Macdonald. I know that
he was. It was someone that was alive because, or still alive because they were interviewing him. But he was staying with him. It was somebody from Mad TV, maybe.
He was on Mad TV for a season.
It was somebody on Mad TV, and they were staying with him because they were worried about him too. Yeah, and he in his room he had this like cable like framed. And he's like, dude, what's that? He goes, that's the cable that my dad fell off trying to put like install and got paralyzed. And like, he's like, dude, that's kind of dark. Yeah. And yeah, he just spiraled, man.
Yeah, he was. Well, there's a great story he's told before. I don't know if they told it in the show where he was on Mad TV. And there's a bit that he had to do where he was like, he was
A pig.
a pig.
Yeah.
And he had to get cocaine.
Yeah.
And so he's dressed up like a pig trying to get a cocaine
Yeah, and
deal.
he's like, so he's talking about that, and he's like, you know, he said he was in the dressing room snorting cocaine, and he's like, I was high as fuck, and I look up and I have this pig nose on,
Yeah.
and he's like, I'm a fucking cocaine pig or whatever, like, and he just started like hysterically laughing,
Yeah.
but like he was like so depressed because
Yeah.
like, you know, like the fat guy's supposed to be funny and shit, and like they like made fun of his weight all the time and shit like that.
Did they talk about when he finally like really lost it, like the podcast he was on and all that stuff with Anthony Cumia?
Yeah.
Did they interview anybody from that show? I'm curious. I know that they're usually not very media friendly. That's kind of
They
the trenches.
they had a couple people from Mad TV, and that's kind of all I can remember.
Oh, okay. Because when he
Because I was
did,
watching it while I was working, so like,
because there was he did a show because it was Anthony from Opie and Anthony. After that, it split, and they linked up together to do the Artie and Anthony show, which is something because it's like, hey, now it's a show part. You know, a lot of people listen to both Howard Stern, Opie and Anthony.
Right.
Now you get a piece of this, and
Right.
it's like, hey, this is like a great format, and it worked for like a couple of weeks. Like it didn't even last a year, and at one point he would come in, he'd be late all the time.
yeah,
Or he just would no show. There would be times he would be like he'd have nosebleeds just randomly. There was times where he would come just like not even making any sense. It was such a train wreck to watch.
Well, did you see when he tried to fight the dude on Howard Stern? He tried to fight like an intern.
Yeah, it was Teddy. Yeah, because he was his assistant.
Yeah.
and he was paying him. Oh, I watched that like a dozen times. It's great because there's a whole lead up. It's like an hour and a half lead up of like it starts with an argument, and Howard Stern's trying to figure it out, and then he eventually like flips out on him, and then they have to shut down the show.
They didn't even want him to show up that day.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, dude, we don't want you on air, and he was just like, he just showed up and did it anyway.
Yeah, he was like calling in a lot, and at this point, and then he would like, he'd fall asleep on air, and he would, but I mean, he worked hard though because that's not easy.
Right.
That show starts at 6 a.m.
Right.
So you got to be there like, for him, he'd probably have to be there like 5:30 in the
Yeah.
morning because you have to be ready.
Right.
And like you have to be there. So you have to get up at like probably like 4:30
Yeah.
in the morning. And on top of that, he's a comedian who has to perform at night.
Yeah.
So and then he would go out on the weekends, and he would make bank when he would go do. So he'd leave, he'd do the show on a Friday, leave to go to wherever he's got to perform on Friday, perform Friday night, Saturday night, possibly even Sunday night, and then go back to New York and then go and do the show again. Like he made a shit ton of money, but I can understand how you would end up leaning on drugs to keep
Right.
yourself going at that schedule because that's crazy. That's
5 hour energy don't do it.
fuck no, and you just got to be on
Right.
every day.
Right.
Like you got that's hard to do. That would drive anybody crazy.
Yeah, he and then they talked about his nose and shit.
Oh yeah. His nose was falling apart. Well, eventually it did. It just like
Yeah, it
caved
just
in.
collapsed.
Did they obviously he's still alive, so they
Yeah.
interview him? at all?
I don't recall.
Interesting.
I don't recall.
He's been kind of MI. Like he came back for a while. He lost a shit ton of weight.
Yeah.
Obviously his nose is broken, and he was clean for a while.
He was working at like a gas station.
Yeah, well, because he went to, I think it was part of he went to jail or something, and he had to get like a job.
Yeah.
So he worked at like a gas station, he worked for a garbage truck,
He worked. I know he was pumping gas.
Yeah.
I know he was like the gas attendant.
which is crazy because he had millions.
Yeah.
I don't know how much he's got now. I'm sure he still has money,
Right.
but he had like millions.
Yeah, and that was like he even said like that was his dream was to be on Howard Stern.
Yeah.
and like he made it and then fucked it all up.
That's so crazy. Like, and you have all that money, and now, yeah, because I don't think he wasn't working it to make money,
Right.
But I think it was like a condition of his release or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fucking just to throw all that away. And then people have always wanted him to reunite with Howard Stern, and now it won't happen.
Right.
He won't do it. One time, there's a clip of Howard Stern where somebody called in. It was like shortly after he had left, it was like some listener being like, "You need to give us an update on art," and he was like, obviously he doesn't want to talk about it,
Right.
and he like flips out on the person. I think it was the last time it really got brought up. They don't ever talk about him.
Right. Is that Robin still on there?
Yeah, she's still on there. Yeah, it's still just like Howard Stern, Robin, and then his sound guy Fred, and Baba Booey, of course. Like it's the core group, but it's not the same.
Right.
Honestly, I didn't listen to Howard Stern before Artie was on it because I was too young. And it wasn't even like I wasn't allowed to. I wasn't up early in the morning to do it, and it just
I
wasn't
never
on.
really listened to him on the radio. I only just watched the show when it was on E.
Sometimes I'd listen on the radio because I would get up in the morning for school, and when I would eat, especially if my parents said you can't, I would get in trouble a lot, and they would the big punishment was they would ground me from the TV.
Yeah, I
'Cause
would get that too.
because I couldn't play video games or nothing. So I was like, eventually I was like, oh wait, I have a stereo in my room. I'll just listen to the radio. And the thing is, it's like the shit on the radio at the time was like way edgier than whatever I get on
Right.
TV. Because I would listen to, I'd get up in the morning instead of watching TV in the morning, I'd listen to like Drew and Mike, or if they're on commercial, I'd go to Howard Stern.
Yeah.
And then at night or in the evening, I would listen to whatever other talk shows were on in the evening, or like Loveline was on late at night.
Love line.
Like, yeah, it would be like, and it was what was great is when I could use a TV, I had like a strict bedtime when I was a kid. So they'd be like 9:30, you got to be in bed, and the TV would give it away because there was light.
Yeah.
But the radio, I just plugged my headphones in,
Right.
and I would just lay in bed till like midnight listening to Loveline. That's all I would do. Oh, then I would just like I had one of those stereos. They had like the 2 tape decks.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would set it to record. So I'd listen in the morning, and then I would have it record for like an hour or so, however long the tape was. And then I would tell my mom to flip the tape. And sometimes she'd forget. Well, eventually the stereo, there was something wrong with it. So when it ran out of tape, it would make like this banging sound on the machine. And so she would have to change it to turn it off. But it was great because I come home and I'm like, all right, like, I get to listen to the rest of whatever it was, Drew and Mike or Howard Stern or whatever. And I was like, yeah, great punishment. Now I get to listen to that.
See, when I was grounded from the TV, I could still play video games, which didn't make sense, but
Oh no, that was the main reason why they did it. 'Cause
I couldn't watch TV, but I could play video games.
the only exception was I could watch TV with them, like as a family.
Yeah.
So I would be like, all right, so I'd plan it out, and I'd be like, all right, this is a movie I want to watch. I'd make a little list of movies I want to watch, and then on the weekends when it came time to, usually like Sundays or something, I would then just pick the movies I wanted to watch. And
Can we watch this as a family?
for the most part, they didn't give me too much of a hassle, but they didn't like. There wasn't comic book movies back then, but every now and again I want to watch like Batman or something.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not watching cartoons. It's like it's not a cartoon. It's Michael Keaton. He's like, it's a cartoon. So
Well, at least he didn't yell at you if the driveway got wet.
what? What?
I thought we went over this story a couple
No.
episodes ago with John again.
How do you get yelled? I mean, if it rains outside,
Dude, so I thought I told the story.
No,
but like,
I don't even
so
know
when
this
we were
story.
kids, I already mentioned like the rub my feet,
Yeah,
rub
yeah.
your dad's feet and all this shit. But he we were like throwing water balloons or something in the summer, or like had squirt guns or some shit.
Okay.
And he was like, "Hey, don't get my driveway wet. My dad doesn't like the driveway wet." And Moose goes, "Well, what if it rains?" And like.
he
like,
had to have been wrong.
Just debunk everything.
His dad must have put some concrete in or something. Like that's the only way that makes sense.
I
No
don't
one's
know,
like,
man.
you get that fucking driveway wet, you're done.
I don't know. I mean, he used to get pissed. Like I was like, and like it was just funny because like it was like within like 15 seconds, Moose was like, "Well, what if it rains?" And
Yeah.
he's like, "You have anything to say?"
Yeah. No,
Kept the boat in the garage.
why? Oh, I guess
Storage.
all year round. Yeah. Well,
But
I
weird,
mean-
weird family.
yeah, it's very weird. Doesn't he like sell like beach towels now or something?
Yeah, something in like the Caribbean.
Yeah. Didn't you see his dad?
I saw his dad at Moose's wedding, and his dad was like, I go, how's John? And his dad goes, he's a fucking bum. He's like, he rents surf towels and surfboards to tourists, which sounds pretty sweet, actually. Just be on an island all the time?
I mean, if he owns his own business,
Yeah.
that would be legit. Like if you own the rental business, then you can make some money. I mean, if he's just working as an attendant, that's not so
Probably.
great. Probably he's not. He's not. The
And
best.
selling air pick or pick guitar picks.
Air picks are for your teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you said air picks, I was like, "What is he, a dentist now?"
Guitar picks. And air picks. All types of picks.
Yeah.
Every pick you would ever need, he sells. He's the pick of the litter.
Yeah.
And then his other brother's like flamboyantly gay.
Hey, that's okay.
So well, it's
2023.
2023.
Yeah.
So it's acceptable. And
It's okay to have a progressive lifestyle.
Just like Flo.
Yeah. Well, honestly, the one thing we were going to talk about, we haven't even got to yet.
Yeah.
Which is St. Patrick's Day. Which, honestly, there's not a lot to cover.
No. Just some big titted bitches.
Yeah.
They were very nice though.
No, they were.
They were
Yeah.
very nice.
They were very, very nice.
The tits were a little too big for my style.
No, but it's like I talked to one of them, and it's like a business.
Yeah.
Their body is a business.
Yeah,
and
it's
it makes
OnlyFans
sense.
and shit.
Yeah.
Because I asked them like, do you actually have like jobs or you just? And they're like, no, we make content.
Which I'm sure they make a shit ton.
Yeah.
So,
On top of like everyone buying them drinks every time they could probably go out.
oh yeah, they don't ever have to pay for anything.
No.
They just show up. and,
Yeah.
they don't have to spend any money, and they just make money.
Right.
But what was interesting was the next night,
Yeah.
Saturday. So St. Patrick's Day is a Friday. Got pretty drunk.
Yeah.
Friday. Went to the Coney Island. That was a crazy.
Yeah.
That was a fucking mess. It felt like, you know what that felt like? All of us at that Coney Island. It made me feel like lunch at high school.
Yeah.
Like there's just two tables of people, and we're just fucking talking
being
shit,
ridiculous.
making a mess. Like it just,
Flirting with the waitress.
yeah, like it was just so ridiculous. But then the next night,
You did it all over again.
we did it again. Yeah, we ended up going out with those girls again. And so this is, I was kind of told you this earlier, but this is the part I left out. So we were in one of the VIP booths with them. And we were doing some shots. And the blonde one,
Yeah.
so with the lesser big tits,
Yes.
she, all of a sudden, I seen she was sniffing something. I was like, what is that? So someone asks, and she's like, oh, here, try it. And she puts it under their nose, and they're like, whoa. And she's like, no, you got to take a big whiff. They were poppers.
Poppers.
And so I did my first popper that night. And it was like this jar. I looked it up, and it's labeled as nail polish remover.
Yeah.
But that's not fully what it is. It has similar contents of
Yeah.
it. But I sniffed it, and it was the weirdest.
It's like a head high.
It was a really and then all of a sudden it was like a warmth that just
Mm-hmm.
started from my brain on down to the rest of my body. I was like, oh my God. Like it's just weird. It doesn't last very long.
Yeah, I did it about 10 years ago, maybe 10,
Yeah.
12 years ago. I did it once and that was it.
It was so weird. And she's like, yeah, gay guys like to do it because it loosens their asshole up. And I'm like, oh, that's good to know. This is why I've never done this. This is.
Yeah, I didn't do it for that reason. I did not do it for that reason. One chick asked me, she's like, want to try this? I'm like, sure. And
Well, it's supposed to relax you in
Yeah.
general. So I can kind of understand. I mean, I'm not going to become a poppers guy because
Nah.
it doesn't last very long.
Right.
And it's just now where
couple minutes.
It's like when people do balloons, nitrous balloons. Like I don't get it. I don't like feeling like a retard for
Right.
like 30 seconds or doing duster.
Duster.
I do got some duster in here if you want to do some. It's a can of it right over there.
I see it.
You just start huffing it and just be like, ooh, what's going on?
What's going on? Start talking like Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah. That's when you know you've really reached the bottom when it's like, well, I don't got any booze or any money, and I can't get any weed, but I got this can of duster. Let's just get fucked up tonight on duster. Which isn't on that. I mean, we've probably told this story before. We go over to Joe's apartment, and they're all over there. I don't know if you were there that night, and it's like him and Brick and some of these other people, and they're just that's the case. They don't have any money. They got no weed. They got no booze, so they're just passing around a can of duster. We walk in, and he does you hear, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on, guys?" And he's all like half out, and he's like, "You want some duster?" And we're like, "No." What?
I just want to watch Degrassi.
You want to hit? You want to take a hit off this dust? Like it's nothing. Like
Right.
it's like, of course we're gonna do some duster. It's like, no.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah, St. Patrick's Day though, I gotta say, was a great time. It's something where as an adult my age, I think it was as good as it was. It was. I honestly think it was one of the best St. Patrick's Days we've done. At least I've done.
It's
in a few years.
Yeah, in a few years. Yeah.
Because think of it, like I don't know what we did last year.
We got too drunk on a fucking stream.
Oh, that was a bad year. Yeah, we didn't do anything. That's
No.
what happened.
And then the year before was COVID.
That was the
Right,
first
or
one we can go
2
to
or
a
3
bar,
years,
but
yeah.
they weren't open very late.
Yeah.
And then before that, yeah, it was lockdown COVID. And then 2019, I think 2019 it wasn't anything crazy. I just remember it went on for a couple days. 'Cause I think it was on a weekend
Was it?
or something like that. It was no. It may have been, what was it? Because I remember we went out. I think it was on a Sunday or something like that a couple years ago in 2019. I mean, that was like
I don't
5
know.
years ago. So
I can't remember.
Move back 5
I can't
days.
remember what I had for lunch.
Because I remember people had to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
But since it was on a Sunday, people were drinking. Like I know I was drinking
Mm-hmm.
the night before. So like I remember Nate came by early, and then we just went to like the bar across the street at the time.
Okay.
And I remember I woke up and I was just like
Doing Duster?
I was just doing Duster. No, I was hungover and I did a shot. It was one of the first times I did like the hair of the dog thing, where I was like, okay, that fixes me up, but
Yeah.
this could be a problem.
Yeah. But speaking of the Duster, I just thought of when we were in high school, we went away to a basketball camp. I think it was at Hope College. So we stayed on campus and shit. There was a couple guys on my team that I'll tell you after.
Okay.
I don't even know if you know them, but they ran out of weed and they tried to smoke Tylenol.
Smoke it?
Yeah, they
Like the
crushed
pill?
Yeah, they crushed it up
Okay.
and put it in a bowl and tried to smoke it.
All right. That's interesting.
So I don't know if they,
I don't know if you could really do
I don't know if
that.
their arthritis started feeling better or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that works
but
that
yeah,
way.
they're fucking retarded.
Yeah, I remember people would talk about like, oh, if you smoke banana peels, you can get high on banana peels. Or people would smoke oregano thinking it was weed.
Yeah, I think Jack got sold some oregano from somebody that we know.
Yeah, that was I didn't learn to appreciate weed until I was probably, I don't know, like 28.
Yeah.
Because I remember the first time I ever smoked weed, I just felt a little out of it. It was probably garbage weed. though.
Right.
And then,
Regs or Dro.
yeah. And then otherwise, the only way I knew how to smoke weed, usually I was at a party or a group of people. We were already kind of drinking, and then someone was like, "Oh, get some weed." And my thinking was, "Well, you just smoke it till it's gone."
Right.
And that's not what you're supposed to do.
No.
You don't need to do that. And so I would just get so insanely uncomfortably high that I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do this.
Right.
And then I eventually found like, oh, just take a hit or two for a while.
Yeah.
And just kind of chill with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a period of time where I like stopped smoking weed for like years, like in my early 20s, and then started smoking again because I don't know what I think it was like I would think too much and
Yeah.
like it was like I would think negative. Like I would just get in a very like almost depression
Yeah.
when I used to, and then I was like, then when I just realized I'm like, oh, I'm high.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh, okay.
Well,
you can kind of think about whatever you want then at that point.
Because what it does, at least for me, is it takes whatever is like in the back of my head and starts bringing it to the front. Like it's not buried anymore.
Yeah.
And so if there's something I'm like worried about, then I can't stop. I can't get my
Can't
brain
stop,
off of
won't
it.
stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I remember when COVID first happened, like early, like in that first March, April time, and everything's in lockdown and people are kind of confused. And I remember I got like really high.
And you're like, is this the end of the world?
I honestly was like, I was like, what if I catch it? What if this is it? What if this is a disease, and if I catch it, then I'm going to die, and this is the end of it? And I was like, I had this moment where I had to accept my own death. And it was like so intense. And because I think I just took an edible, I think that's what it was. But it was so, I couldn't get my brain off of it. And it was like starting to panic me. And then I was like, all right, I guess this is it. This is how I die.
Yeah.
And this is the way this is going to go. And I just have to accept it. And then I end up falling asleep.
And you're like, well, if I'm dead, then I just won't wake up.
But then after that, I didn't give a shit about COVID anymore. I was
Right.
like, whatever.
Yeah. Well, dude, it's weird because like the other day I saw somebody wearing a mask inside of
I've been seeing
7-Eleven.
that more now.
And I'm like,
It's
so
over, dude.
weird, dude. Like,
I went to the gym. I saw a couple people wearing masks at the gym. I went to the grocery store. I saw a couple people. I'm like, I haven't heard anything about, like, for a while we were hearing about, like, oh, there's a Delta variant.
Yeah.
And I'm a Chow variant or whatever. And then now that's all
the Ralph
talk.
Macchio variant.
Yeah. Or it was like, oh, you got to get vaccinated. We don't hear any of that anymore. And yet people are still putting the masks on. I'm like, where are they hearing this? Because I'm not hearing. And I'm not like, well, I don't ever pay attention to CNN or Fox News. It's like, I surf the internet with all sources of
Right.
information.
I mean, you'll see something trending. And,
but I haven't heard shit about COVID
Same.
at all.
And
like, nothing.
And when I get home from work every day, my dad watches like an hour and a half of the news.
Yeah.
So like I see the news when I get home. So I haven't heard anything about like because even they used to just be like, oh, there was 3 more COVID deaths today. The total is 17 billion people.
Completely stopped talking about it. It's done and over, which I'm glad.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm sick of it because that's like I can't do anything about it. It's either I catch it or I don't. I already got it at least once. I probably got it twice. So it's like, and then technically, if you got it, then you got a little of like the what do they call it? The immunity kind of naturally. Plus, I did a little bit of a vaccine. I didn't do the full thing, but I did enough.
See, I didn't do any of it. And I don't know if I ever got it.
I did the one where you got to get 2 shots, and I only did the 1.
Yeah.
And honestly,
You did halvesies.
I did a little halvesies, and I think that's good. I did all right because I did that like a couple weeks before I went to the gathering that year in 2021.
All right.
I felt amazing. That was good. Now, granted, for like the next year after that, I got sick like every 3 months. So there was that. Like I got sick. When was the last time I got sick recently in like
I think
January?
I got sick in a while.
I think it was in
Knock on wood.
January. It was It was early January. It was like the week right after New Year's. I got sick for like 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the trend last year. Like I know I got sick in May. I ended up getting sick for like 2-3 weeks. It's
a
like
long time to be sick.
well, it's like it lingers.
Lingers.
So it starts with like a sore throat, then it turns to a cough, then there's like a runny nose, then it's like this annoying cough thing, and so the
Stuffy nose.
Yeah, like
then
the
drainage.
The worst of it's like a week or so, week and a half. You're tired.
Yeah.
You're not sleeping well, and then after that, you kind of get away from it. You just got that annoying like cough.
You know
thing.
what I'm actually really excited for the first time in years is summer, because the last like 5 years, I was wearing the brown shackles.
Oh, that's right.
And I was always outside, and I
Yeah.
never wanted to be outside when I got off of work.
Yeah.
And now that I'm inside, I want to be outside.
So it's interesting you say that because I was actually just thinking, I didn't even realize it's like, oh, winter's over.
Yeah.
Like we're going into April. Like the snow and shit is pretty much done.
Yeah,
We might get one more, but that's it.
We're getting like 50-degree weather all week this week.
Yeah, like
I'm in shorts today.
yeah, we've gone through that. I didn't even realize it because this last year, that'll be a whole episode on its own. Maybe a year from now, we'll talk about it. But there's this last year has been fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And I didn't even and I didn't enjoy like last year when it went from winter to spring to summer. Mm-hmm. I didn't enjoy any of it.
Yeah.
Like I didn't get to enjoy any of it at all until the fall hit.
I remember you were like I remember when you were going through the shit last year, right?
Yeah.
And it was around this time,
yeah.
and you were like,
It was ramping up.
and I was like, dude, like, when can things get better?
Yeah.
And you were like, July. You're like, I'm hoping this shit is done by July. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, okay. And it was, I think it was a little before July.
Yeah, it was like mid-June
Yeah.
was when it was finally. But then, little did I know, it wasn't over.
Right.
Like it was. That was like I had a break from June to like October.
It was like the eye of the storm.
Kind of, yeah. And then things kicked off again for a little bit to a lesser degree. And I'll tell you off air, but then luckily it's not here anymore, but there's other shit going on. There's some other shit. But that's a story I'm going to give it at least, I think, well, the problem is I was going to tell the first part of the story.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was the whole story.
Yeah.
So I was going to tell that by now.
Yeah.
I said probably like a year.
Yeah.
So we're due for that. But the problem is that's not the whole story.
Right,
and I can't tell the whole story right now.
But
I can't.
But we can also do cliffhanger. We can do a part 1 and part 2.
Well, the problem is there's parts that I found out on part 2 on why parts of part 1 even happened.
Right. But like
So
that would be perfect for a part 1 and 2 because you do the part 1 and it's like it's the development of the story and your thinking and what was really behind the story of the story.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, I'd have to sit down and kind of work it out where it's like, okay, let me tell you how it happened according to myself at that time.
Yeah.
I'd have to put it in that box.
I mean, we got some stories, coming. We got coming stories. Coming
There's
stories.
a lot
like jism type stories.
We have jism stories?
Coming jism stories.
What are these stories?
Well, I told you we got a relationship story
that's
coming
right.
up.
I forgot about that.
So,
yeah.
Salt and Peppa said, let's talk about sex. We are going to have a nice relationship based conversation on this podcast coming soon.
Okay. I like this. I like this idea. I forgot.
We also
That's good. That's an interesting one.
We still have to get the 64 bits of love going.
We will. You know what? What if we do that to kick it off?
That's
a good one to kick it. Like we do that, and it's like because
now she's looking for new love.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
Yes.
So she tells the story,
Yes.
and now it's like, well, you know what? We got you covered because we have some contestants, and over the next couple of weeks, we're gonna and then
Perfect.
that I think that'll work itself out perfectly.
All right.
Yeah, we just line up some dates and we can make it happen. So,
All right. But I think we're kind of wrapping up
I
here.
think we did it all.
I don't know what else to say.
That's pretty much it. I mean,
you're Melvin Troy. I'm Bobby
Yeah.
Caboose. This is the 64-Bit Legends. Check out the Legends Layover.
Yep.
Check out twitch.tv/Melvin Troy.
yes, and there's going to be some new
Merch.
streaming. Well, there's some new merch, but there's some new streaming channels that I'm going to kick off here that I'll be bringing up shortly.
Nice.
So that'll be. We're going to test some stuff out.
Yeah. Shout out to the Creep team
Yes, absolutely.
for letting me be an honorary member for a night.
Yep.
And other than that, what you gonna do, brother? When Melvin Troy, Bobby Caboose, and all of the 64-Bit Legends